Hey there, welcome back to Ember Productions. Now, I know it's been a minute since we've had any real content here on the channel, but life gets in the way. We've been busy. We're really hoping that with the last month and a half in the year here to ramp things up a little bit, and then we have a lot of exciting plans for what we're going to be doing next year. So please make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, follow us on social media to get updates for everything that's going on. I'm Maxwell Haddad, and I'm here today to talk to you about a really special new film called The Fabelmans. I'm sure you're familiar with it. If you're not, it's directed by Steven Spielberg, written by Spielberg and Tony Kushner, and it is essentially an autobiographical film about Steven's childhood, his family, and his love of making films, as well as his Judaism. Now, the characters are named a little bit differently, and certain liberties are taken to make it perhaps a little more dramatic, a little more compelling. But if you look back throughout the entire career of Steven Spielberg, and let's just get this out of the way first, I am a massive fan of Mr. Spielberg. I know there are some cinephiles out there who look down at him a little bit, think he's too emotional or saccharine. I think he is legitimately one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, a master of his craft. Whatever genre he plays in, he excels, whether it's horror, sci-fi, action, drama, war, family films. Not everything he's made is great, but everything he's made is at least interesting, and he has made some of the greatest films of all time. But if you look back through everything he's done, he doesn't often get personal. You know, there's some discussion about how perhaps the portrayal of the family dynamic in Close Encounters of the Third Kind was Steven using his art to deal with his parents' divorce. And daddy issues are a pretty common theme throughout his work. And, you know, if you've ever listened to Steven talk, and particularly if you watch The Fabelmans, you can see how there is perhaps a little bit of a contentious relationship between him and his father, at least as far as him pursuing a career as a filmmaker is concerned. But The Fabelmans is without a doubt the most personal and intimate film Steven has ever made. It feels like a great artist finally bearing his soul on screen, and it is sort of a wonder to behold. Now, I'm going to review the film a little bit, talk about what I liked about it, but more than that, I am going to get a little bit personal here because this film impacted me in a way that felt rare. I connected to it and related to it on such a deep spiritual level that watching this film was one of those experiences where you see or connect with a piece of art and it just sort of floors you and you leave the cinema different than when you sat down. This has had me reflecting so deeply on my life and my upbringing.
You can't just love something, you also have to take care of it. It's more important than your hobby. Can you stop calling it a hobby?
The cast is uniformly excellent. Michelle Williams as the mother, as Mitzi Fabelman, is extraordinary. She brings such a unique perspective. She really gets to dive deep. She gets to have fun and be a little silly. It is a bold performance. She makes choices, and I think for me they are gorgeous choices. It feels like a rich, fully formed character. You know Mitzi in this movie. And playing her husband, you have Paul Dano, who, you know, is always interesting. He is excelled at playing creepy characters, and he gets to play a much softer, more typically human role here. And he is excellent, and him and Michelle Williams play off each other really, really well. We also have Seth Rogen and Judd Hirsch in the cast playing sort of different family members a little bit. They're both really great. We've seen Seth delve into drama a little bit more before with Steve Jobs, and I think once again here he shows that even though he can still make you laugh, he is not just the funny man. There are complexities to what he's capable of doing on screen. And Judd Hirsch has basically an extended cameo, and it's one of those scenes where he is so good and so dynamic and brings so much meaning to this part that, you know, he may well get some sort of awards recognition, and it'll be one of those fun facts where, like, wow, can you believe Judd Hirsch was nominated for 8 minutes of screen time? That may or may not happen. It's possible. The other actor I really want to talk about is Gabriel LaBelle. Gabriel has done some work, but this certainly is his potential Star is Born moment. He plays Sammy Fabelman throughout the majority of the movie, and he brings this joy and this innocence and this wonder and this magnetism to the part. You have to imagine that Steven and his team sought hundreds, if not thousands, of potential actors to play this pivotal role. Basically, Steven got to choose someone to play him as a child on screen and as a teenager and go through all these different things he went through. And Gabriel is sort of astoundingly good. It's just one of those natural performances where you're like, this kid has just got it. And he's a great anchor for this film. This film is emotional. This film feels honest in its own way. It has a warmth to it, and Spielberg works again with his longtime cinematographer Janusz Kaminski, with his very particular lighting. You can always tell when he's shooting a movie, and it creates this tone for this film that you feel like you're almost watching someone's childhood movies. There is a sense of intimacy in the way things are shot. And because this is inspired by Steven's life, the main character, as I sort of alluded to, Sammy, wants to become a filmmaker. And there are these incredible scenes where Sammy and his friends and his family get together to make these student films. And it's so clear that Spielberg and his team got to have so much fun recreating these films that Steven sort of made when he was a kid, with more, the ability to be more elaborate, because obviously they have this budget and they're making a major movie. But the way these scenes are shot, and the way it'll go back and forth from the film stock being used for the Fabelmans, and then the 8mm or 16mm film stock that Sammy is using to shoot his films in the movie, makes for some really cool sequences. Sammy also learns how to edit on celluloid, and this brought me such great joy to see these scenes unfolding. He gets these editing machines and he's cutting and he's splicing, and there's all this discussion about how inevitably in their careers many of our master filmmakers make their movie about the magic of cinema, and that is this movie for Steven Spielberg. More than anything, although it is him bearing his soul on screen, it is also a love letter to the sheer wonder and magic of movie making and of movies and of storytelling. And in that regard, it is so successful. And not to say that I have fallen out of love with movie at all, but it has sort of reinvigorated my passion and my desire to one day make a movie. Any work of art that can inspire something like that in someone is well worth seeing. Everything about this movie is beautiful. It's so tenderly and funnily written. There's joy in it. It's not all drama and tears, although there are all drama and tears to be had. But I mentioned that this is a particularly personal movie for me, and it impacted me, and I talked a little bit about it reinvigorating my desire to make movies. I went to film school growing up. There was a lot of similarities between myself and the character Sammy in this movie, and thus, by association with Mr. Spielberg, I was always obsessed with movies as a kid. I always had some sort of camera around me, shooting things, trying to make little short films. But more than that is Judaism. It has never been a secret that Steven Spielberg is Jewish. Throughout his work, there have been, Jewish characters. Obviously, he made Schindler's List, which is arguably the greatest work of Holocaust cinema ever made. He helped produce things like Shoah. He has been hugely influential in the Jewish community and as a Jewish artist since he's been around. But this film is probably, more than any of that, the most profoundly Jewish work he's ever made. And when I say that, I don't mean necessarily in terms of religion, because the fascinating thing about Judaism is it is a religion, but there's also such a sense of culture to it, more so than certain other religions. There's a sense of identity. There's very unique and particular things about it that really set it apart. And, if you listen to the way Steven has talked about his Judaism throughout his life, it resonates a lot with how I've always approached it. Not so much a strong religious affinity. I'm not going to, get into my thoughts on God here, and I don't know how Mr. Spielberg may or may not feel about God, but it's clear to him through watching this film, and to me, that regardless of any religious or spiritual aspects, being Jewish is really important part of our identity, and something that I am incredibly proud of. The timing of the release of this film is fascinating because there has been an uptick in verbal anti-Semitism over the last couple months. We have seen a rise in this kind of rhetoric, but it almost feels like over the last few months it's hitting even deeper, been even more prevalent, and it's been a hot button issue that people have been discussing. And I've seen some really horrible, hateful, bigoted things said on social media, written in articles, said in stand-up comedy, on Instagram, from people of note. And you know what I think this film can do, if you really sit and watch it, is allow you to empathize with what it means to be a Jewish American. How if you live in the wrong place or there's no strong Jewish community around you, it can be very alienating if people pick up on it and decide to bully you or discriminate against you because of that. There are certainly moments in my life where, because I am, proudly and openly Jewish, I have been attacked. I have been called slurs that I'm not going to repeat here, slurs that are used in this movie, and the person who I saw it with had to almost calm me down a little bit, because I had a very visceral outward reaction to seeing this, because it reminded me so much, not only of what's been going on now, but of experiences throughout my life. And I can't help but think that for Mr. Spielberg and Tony Kushner, who co-wrote the script with him, this was a very cathartic way to reconcile with his Jewish American identity, what that meant to his life, what that means to his art, what that meant to his family. This is a deeply, deeply Jewish movie. It does not hide that. It is in the DNA and in the fabric of this story. This is a Jewish family presented on screen with love and care. And of course, there are issues that unfold, and there's, fighting and all of that sort of stuff, as happens in any family. But it was so lovely to see a major American filmmaker. This is a guy who's made Jaws and Jurassic Park and Indiana Jones and all of these great, and E.T., all of these incredible movies that everybody knows. And here we have this tender, relatively low-key drama about a Jewish kid growing up, dealing with anti-Semitism, and figuring out what it is he wants to do in life. It just so happens to become a filmmaker. And this affected me in such a profound way. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say this film is going to change the mind of people who are anti-Semitic. Once you go that deep into your hate, there's really nothing that's going to get you out of it. Certainly not a film that, does have its moments of silliness, that does have comedy to it, that despite being a family drama with some really wrenching moments, is a lot of fun at the same time. I was smiling and laughing and really experiencing the gamut of emotions that a film can bring to you. Of course, there's the John Williams score, there's classical music used throughout it that all enhances it, but there's just this personal touch to it. And again, I'm going to keep harking on the Jewish aspect of the film, because that's something that resonated so, so deeply within me. I almost feel like if someone wants to say, hey, I want to get a better understanding of your childhood and who you are and why you think the way you think, I can point them to this film and be like, there are many superficial things different about it. This is not specifically my experience, but the film is made with such tender and love and care and passion and a vision of this world and these characters, these Jewish American characters, that it felt like my experience, even though it isn't. And that's really, really powerful. Anytime I can connect with a work of art on this level, I'm going to want to talk about it and celebrate it. This is, by any estimation, one of the best films I've seen this year, if not the best. There's still a month and a half left. We'll see what else comes out and how it all shakes out.
Most of my movies have been a reflection of things that happened to me.
Movies are dreams that you'll never forget.
And this story kept tugging me back to actual memories, and seeing them unspool in front of me, it was just like nothing I have ever gone through before.
Please, if it is playing near you and it's going to continue to expand and open wide as we come to Thanksgiving, go see The Fabelmans. Go see one of the great filmmakers of all time, a pop artist who's also shown that he can make any kind of movie and play in these serious sandboxes. Bear his all. on screen. This feels like a landmark moment for his career, and we know he's going to keep making movies, but in its own way, this feels like a swan song. This feels like an artist who knows he's coming towards the end of his career. He's closer to the end than he is to the beginning, saying all the things he's wanted to say and maybe never knew how until now. So yeah, I absolutely loved this movie. It affected me in an incredibly profound way. And I hope that you do go see it and have a similar experience. And if you don't, that's fine, but not to make this a PSA, but let's put all the hate and bigotry and racism and transphobia and anti-Semitism aside. Let's just all, accept each other for who we are, and let's just move on through this life with empathy and care. And these are some of the things that I took away from this film, so that's pretty special. Thank you for joining us today here on Ember Productions. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on social media, follow the channel on social media, and we will see you soon, as again, we really hope to be ramping the content up back here on the channel. Thank you guys.